Welcome, everyone. It gives me great pleasure to introduce one of our mental health support team. This is Jimmy Holland. Hi, Jimmy.
Hi, Jamie. Good to see you.
Thanks for coming on, mate, and talking a little bit about yourself. So basically what I wanted to do was figure out what it is that got you from wherever it was you were, what you were doing before this, into the kind of mental health support space and what brought you into it. So if you could kind of give us a little bit of background into your journey into this space.
Cool, Jamie. I think in terms of when I was very young, I've always been the type of kid who was not necessarily in school, more about life and more general terms about, the journey that we're on. And so from a very young age, I was curious about things. I wanted to know more about people. I wanted to know more about myself, definitely. And, I would say from when I was about 12, I think it was 12, my granddad died. I was very, very close to my granddad. And then within a year, my gran, she died. I was very close to her. And so at the age of about 12 and 13, I was just absolutely devastated by grief and really struggling to work out, my place in the world and, make sense of what had happened. These two beautiful people who I love so much had left my life. And it was very, very emotionally demanding at that time. And, it's interesting because I think with like a lot of people, we seek relief. If you think of when we're children, we're given a bottle or a dummy or a blanket or a favourite toy to soothe us when we're struggling. And at the age of 12 and 13, for me, I started eating. I was overeating. And then as I progressed, I got into me like 14, 15, started taking drugs. Started with LSD and then progressed, as a lot of people do. And then, as I got older, I was drinking. And eventually I got to a stage where I was really struggling with my mental health and felt like I was falling to bits. I'd go and see the doctor. The doctor, basically at that time, I didn't like him. He didn't seem to like me. So, but I think he saw me as a nuisance because I was always there and I was always saying, I'm struggling. It's not a criticism of the doctor. I think I just, at that stage, I wasn't ready to be helped. But anyway, I was introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous. Early in Alcoholics Anonymous meetings to address my alcohol use. I'd already stopped using drugs, but I was still drinking. And I went to AA meetings for 22 years. And during that period, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about opening up. I'd never met other men who talked about their emotions. I loved my dad, but he wasn't an emotional person. He was a closed book. And so, I realised in AA meetings, there's men and women in AA meetings, but, I started to hear people actually opening up about how they felt. And what I realised is that when I started going to AA, I could put the alcohol down, but then I had to start to learn to deal with me and who I was and how I'd become the person that I was and all my coping mechanisms. So, it was an interesting journey. I haven't been to AA for over 7 years now. I don't drink, celebrated in January. Over 30 years continuous sobriety. I wanted to pursue other information and get a more holistic approach to my recovery. I started training to be a therapist, and that was in 2018. And then I pursued that until I qualified. And then, but I mean, in my family, I had a brother, beautiful brother, David, really struggled with his mental health. He killed himself in 2019, and so obviously that brought it home a lot while I was doing my training to be a therapist at that point. I think I look at the rest of my family and not just my immediate family, my extended family, issues around drinking, drug use, other forms of addictive behaviour. And so for me it's like being a process, and continues to be actually a process of trying to work out my own head and sort of hopefully trying to become a bit clearer on that, which I definitely have become, is then enabling me to maybe extend that and help other people and help them to overcome some of the obstacles that they may be facing.
It's really interesting that you've used this career to almost work as a tool for just figuring stuff out. A lot of what you were saying was kind of resonating. Lost a family member very young, turned to alcohol, started using drugs. That kind of led to a bit of a slippery slope. Depression started kicking in for me at around, I'd say probably, I look back now and it's hard to diagnose it, but looking back, maybe sort of 14 up. So yeah, I mean, what is it that you enjoy so much about it now? Is it what you wanted it to be in terms of a career? Because it almost feels like by your story that you decided that it was going to be a tool. What has it become for you now?
Well, even when I started to do me training as a therapist, I didn't set out with the intention of what I used as, because there's stages you go through, obviously, with any training, including therapeutic. And what I realised was that I wanted to learn more about myself, develop personally, which I'm still committed to, as I said earlier. But I wanted to, as I progressed, I got more involved in it. I got more interested in it. I realised that there was things that I'd, maybe made assumptions about in the past. I mean, I worked for a long time in drug and alcohol services. I've worked in all kinds of places as a civilian, working in a prison, methadone clinics, syringe exchanges, recovery centres, residential detoxification centres. I've worked all over the place doing, that type of work. But what I realised is that I wasn't a trained therapist. And when I trained to be a counsellor, I realised that I'd done quite a bit of good work with people over the years, but not working as a counsellor. Whereas when I trained to be a counsellor, I realised that if I was going to actually work as a counsellor, I needed to learn particular skills and styles. I had communications skills. I was able to build up rapport with clients wherever they were and whatever background they were from. But, there's certain things that therapists, I always thought, being a therapist, it's not that difficult. It's probably just the same as what I do, but they've got a different job title. But yeah. So in terms of the actual direction and how the rewards of it, it's like what I see from, I'm also trained as a life coach as well. So very solution focused, but also what I find with a lot of people is they need to go back, or they choose to go back into the past to look at, their upbringing possibly, or earlier stages in the life. And for some people, they need to go through that process in order to make sense of it, to maybe, reacquaint themselves with the person that they are, because often people lose sight of who they are especially when addiction. And second order within addiction, I found that in my dealings, cocaine users tend to, and heroin addicts and crack cocaine users tend to be seen as the bottom of the pile, and alcoholics somewhere in the middle maybe. But it's, for me, it's like, everyone's a unique individual, and everyone's got a reason why they turn to it. And so as a therapist, I'm able to build up rapport, develop a working relationship, the therapeutic alliance, get to know people, build up that trust, so that hopefully they can start to go deep and understand a bit more about themselves. And then, for me, I think that the idea of coming away from substance use, which isn't everyone's plan. I understand that some people just want to moderate, and that's fair enough. I chose abstinence from alcohol, but other people will choose to just tone down, maybe stop drinking certain drinks or not drinking as often. Everyone's different and everyone takes their own approach, but I feel that the process of therapy and coaching is something that it helps you to sort of like press the pause button and maybe just consider, okay, where am I? How did I get to this stage in my life? How am I living my life, and where do I want to go in the future? So for me, the therapeutic journey, it is a journey, and it doesn't just, you could have 6 sessions with a therapist and then leave therapy only to re-enter therapy at a later date, because we're always changing, we're always evolving, in my opinion. And as we do, sometimes we just need some completely objective, somebody who's offering a confidential space in which to explore what's going on in their life without being judged, and somebody who can maybe like walk alongside that person and accompany them on the journey for the leg that they're currently negotiating in order to get through to the next stage and to move on and find, some inner peace, possibly, and some, greater level of happiness in life.
It's a beautiful way to put it, mate. Is there a particular person that you help?
Anyone who's an adult. That's, well, my criteria really adults, because we have to do a different stage of training in order to work with. So that's not the path I've chosen. I've chosen with adults. There's nobody, I've never met anybody to work with as an adult. Excuse me. What I find, for some people, they've got a stage where they're really struggling with severe mental health. And so, if you've got an enduring mental health illness, then therapy is maybe not the place, to start at some point later on. Whereas for me, I'm prepared to work with people at a certain level if they've got some kind of psychosis. And it's not just people who use drugs or other substances or other behaviors. I'll work with anyone, so I work with a lot of men, I work with women, I work with people who are really struggling with the mental health, but not so severely, a lot of anxiety, depression. Men, especially, I find, often a closed book. They don't want to talk about what's going on. It's like, whether they're involved in a work situation or a team or a relationship, it's often, I just need to keep my head down and keep going. I can't talk to anyone. I can't show any sign of weakness. But I'll work with anyone, really, Jamie. It's not, for me, I'm a great believer in that. There's a fella called Wayne Dyer who passed away several years ago, American fella, spiritual beings having a human experience. And that's what I believe we all are. We're all here. We're having a journey. We're all unique individuals. And it's like, if you're struggling, then I'd be happy to at least have a conversation with you. And sometimes I meet people and they find out that I'm not the right therapist for them, because that's really important, having the right therapist or coach. So we have a session, and by the end of it, I say, do you think I'm the person that you want to work with? Because if you're going to do this work, find the right person to do it with. So if somebody says I'm not the right person, I just say, okay, that's fine. That's the decision you should make. Always, I encourage the clients to make the decision that is best for them, not for me.
I was going to ask that as my next question, because for me, that's essential. I've worked with a therapist in the past that wasn't necessarily right, and I've worked with one that was definitely right, and it makes a hell of a difference. So yeah, it's nice to hear that that is your process to make sure that it is a right connection at the beginning.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's essential. I mean, you wouldn't go to a restaurant, would you, and be served bad food and then keep going back. So it's more.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Is there anything in particular about your job that you love?
Yeah, there's loads of things I love about my job, really, Jamie. I mean, I love the opportunity to meet people. I've met so many people. I feel really privileged doing this job, to be honest. It's like the people I've met in the places that I've met them, and some people have been really pleased to work with me. Some people have not been particularly pleased with me. And I'm not just talking about as a therapist. I'm talking about in different jobs that I've done over the years, including drug and alcohol services and community work. I like the idea of helping people. There's definitely something that appeals to me about helping people who are struggling. A lot of people assume, I think, that therapists don't struggle themselves. And, I know a lot of therapists doing the job that I do have problems, and sometimes therapy, it's a well-worn path. But the thing is, what I find for people is that when they come to therapy, they're going to be learning a lot about themselves if they're open-minded. And I love to see people grow. It's like, for me, I love nature. I love spending time in nature. I love the therapy value being in a forest or a park. I tune into the seasons and I see the leaves fall, and I can see the buds are starting to come through now. And it's like, that's what I love to see, people changing, people growing. It's not in my time. It's not for me to make them change. It's for people to come and explore where they're up to. And if they decide that there's changes they want to make, then I can, be a catalyst in that process, and I can assist them on the journey. I can't do it. No therapist can change a client. What we can do is we can support a client while they go through that process. And sometimes the process can definitely be painful. And I've been through it a number of times as a client, so I can attest to that. Well, what I would say is it worth it? Absolutely, yeah. The growth, for me, it's like the growth through therapy and through coaching can be unbelievable. But it can be painful. But if you're experiencing that pain, then keep going, because it's going to get better.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've experienced both, and both have changed my life in different ways. So look, thank you so much for coming on and having a chat with us. The goal of this mini series is to demonstrate to employers that we're exposing their people to, really qualified and experienced and also passionate individuals. And I think we've demonstrated that today. So thank you, Jimmy.
Thanks very much for your time, Jamie, and thanks for inviting me onto the video. I appreciate it. And thanks for all the work you and Hannah are doing. It's amazing. We need more people like you, believe me.
Thanks, mate. I appreciate that a lot.